Okay, thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
You know, I've only been mayor here for 9 months, and I haven't gotten a standing ovation before. And I've just got to say this. You know, if we can get the governor into the city of Mauldin, it's a great day in the city of Mauldin. It would not be possible, and we want to thank our sponsors. And when I call your group, if you would stand, please, the Republican Women of the Golden Strip. Please stand. State Young Republicans. And then, of course, Victory 2012 with Mr. Pat Mackey. Where is Mr. Is he out buying a book? Is that parking cars? Parking cars. And then, of course, we certainly always want to thank the press for coming out and covering our events here in the city of Mauldin. We think we have a great relationship with all our press here. We appreciate the good coverage that we're getting tonight. Okay. Next on our agenda, I want to introduce the senior pastor at Mauldin United Methodist Church, Mr. C.E. Kanai, and I believe he's going to return our invitation.
Let's pray. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe. You govern all things in mercy and justice. Your will is peace for all people. You bless us with the gift of political systems and governmental structures and human leaders. And even though all human systems are fallen and imperfect, you work through them to bring order and stability to your world. We pray for the leaders of our city and our state and our nation, and especially for our governor who is with us tonight. We pray your wisdom and blessing and guidance upon them all. And, O Lord, we pray for ourselves. Forgive us when we take for granted the gifts that you have poured out upon us. Forgive us when we have asked what our state and our country can do for us rather than what we can do to serve. Forgive us when we have asked what our leaders have done for us rather than what we can do to support them. Forgive us when we have expected much and sacrificed little. Forgive us. Make us truly grateful. And give us the hearts of servants, that your kingdom might be known in our midst. We pray in your blessed and holy name. Amen.
And we have a very special treat tonight. It's always wonderful when we can get our young people involved in the process of government. So tonight we have coming to us a 12-year-old student at Beck Academy. And her name is Miss Ellis Turner. You would stand with her.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It would not be possible, and we want to thank our sponsors. And when I call your group, if you would stand, please, the Republican Women of the Golden Strip. Please stand. State Young Republicans. And then, of course, Victory 2012 with Mr. Pat Mackey. Where is Mr. Is he out buying a book? Is that parking cars? Parking cars. And then, of course, we certainly always want to thank the press for coming out and covering our events here in the city of Mauldin. We think we have a great relationship with all our press here. We appreciate the good coverage that we're getting tonight. Okay. Next on our agenda, I want to introduce the senior pastor at Mauldin United Methodist Church, Mr. C.E. Kanai, and I believe he's going to return our invitation.
Let's pray. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe. You govern all things in mercy and justice. Your will is peace for all people. You bless us with the gift of political systems and governmental structures and human leaders. And even though all human systems are fallen and imperfect, you work through them to bring order and stability to your world. We pray for the leaders of our city and our state and our nation, and especially for our governor who is with us tonight. We pray your wisdom and blessing and guidance upon them all. And, O Lord, we pray for ourselves. Forgive us when we take for granted the gifts that you have poured out upon us. Forgive us when we have asked what our state and our country can do for us rather than what we can do to serve. Forgive us when we have asked what our leaders have done for us rather than what we can do to support them. Forgive us when we have expected much and sacrificed little. Forgive us. Make us truly grateful. And give us the hearts of servants, that your kingdom might be known in our midst. We pray in your blessed and holy name. Amen.
And then we have a very special treat tonight. It's always wonderful when we can get our young people involved in the process of government. So tonight we have coming to us a 12-year-old student at Beck Academy. And her name is Miss Ellis Turner. You must stand with her.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm Karen Mann, President of the Republican Women of the Golden District. With me are Vice President Grace Carolyn and our Treasurer Judy Brooks. I realize it's a little unusual to see a cluster of people up here to make an introduction, but perhaps none of us felt entirely equal to the task, and collectively we might muddle through.
Governor Nikki Haley was elected in November 2010 and is one of the strongest physical conservatives in the state government. First elected to represent Lexington County in 2004, Representative Haley was re-elected to the State House in 2008 with 83% of the vote. That is the largest percentage ever earned by a lawmaker facing a contested South Carolina election that year. She won the Republican Party promotion for governor in June of 2010. Governor Haley's tenure has been marked by conservative leadership and an unwavering commitment to the taxpayers' bottom line. She has fought wasteful spending at every turn. She has pushed for a smaller, more efficient government and has led the fight for accountability and transparency. And that was before her arrival at State House. This was sorely lacking, and we really appreciate her government.
For her efforts to cut taxes and slow the growth of government spending, Nikki was named Friend of the Taxpayer in 2009 by the South Carolina Association of Taxpayers and a Taxpayer Hero in 2005 by Governor Mark Sanford. She has lifetime A ratings from the South Carolina Club for Growth, the Palmetto Family Council, and the National Rifle Association. Nikki has also received the Palmetto Leadership Award from the South Carolina Policy Council for her expertise on policy matters, and the Strom Thurmond Excellence in Public Service and Government Award from the South Carolina Federation of Republican Women for the outstanding constituent service she provided to her district. Nikki and her husband Michael, an officer in the Army National Guard, attend Mount Horeb United Methodist Church in Lexington. Nikki and Michael have 2 children, Rena 14 and Naylan 11. It is with great pleasure that we welcome Governor Nikki Haley to Mauldin and the Golden Strip. Please join me in welcoming Governor Haley.
say it is a great day in South Carolina, and I love the fact that I am in Mauldin. I want to thank Karen and her girlfriends. I will tell you the way this all came about was they actually came to an Open Door After 4 meeting. I do Open Door After 4 meetings all across the state. I do them once a month, and I meet one-on-one with constituents. And they can ask me anything. They can ask for help. We get all kinds of things, and they just said, will you come? And I said, of course I will. And so that is how it happened. So you can thank them for me being here. And it's like I told the mayor, I hope this is not the last time I come to see you here. So I look forward to coming back again. I know that Jim we're going to do some moderating, but I'm just going to fill you in on a few things that are going on. It's an interesting time in our country, and I know that we're all feeling it. We're less than 45 days out. And what I tell everyone is this job is what I thought it would be. I knew we would fight some unemployment. I knew that we would fight a tough budget. I knew that we would fight debt. I knew that there were all of these things that we were going to have to work on. What I didn't know I was going to have to fight so much was Washington, D.C. And that has been incredibly hard, but it doesn't have to be. And, you know, I'll give you the example. Your legislature passed a very strong illegal immigration reform bill. Now, I'm the daughter of legal immigrants. They came here the right way. They put in the time. They put in the money. They are offended by those that don't follow the rules and don't come the right way. We are a country of laws. When we stop being a country of laws, we stop being, that's entirely what this country was based on. But we passed it. And I signed the bill into law, and President Obama signed it. And so we aren't able to enforce it. I will say until I'm blue in the face, if we have to show a picture ID to buy Sudafed, if we have to show a picture ID to get on an airplane, we should have to show a picture ID to protect the integrity of the voting process. Al Sharpton spoke out yesterday and called me out by name, and he said, I can't believe that she is holding her state back by keeping people from voting. And my comment to him was, as an Indian female, I can't believe that you are disgracing minorities by saying that we don't have the capabilities to go and have a picture taken. It is offensive to us. The Bowen story, and it is one that I say over and over again because it needs to be heard, and I say it across the country. We got such a shot in the arm when Bowen came to South Carolina. 1,000 jobs they wanted to create in Charleston, South Carolina, by a good American company. At the same time, they expanded 2,000 jobs in Washington State. Not one person was hurt, not one. And President Obama and the National Labor Relations Board sued that good American company. When you start suing your American companies, where are you telling them to go? You're sending them overseas. But the great news is, South Carolina did what we do best. We got loud. And who would have thought that the entire country joined us in getting mad? And what we saw was a president who didn't want to have to deal with this during an election cycle, the fact that the NLRB dropped their suit, and now, a couple of months ago, going on that tarmac, seeing that big Mac Daddy plane come out with the Made with Pride in South Carolina logo, followed by 6,000 non-union employees. So proud of what they have done. That's South Carolina. That's what we do. So what I do want to say is we all wanted President Obama to do well. We did, because the fate of our country was at risk. But we are looking at the fact that we've lost our credit rating. We're looking at the fact that this country has higher debt than when we started. We're looking at the fact that the unemployment has not gone down. We are looking at the fact that gas prices are twice the amount they were before. And we're saying it's time to move to another direction. We can do better. We deserve better. So that's what we're seeing as we go forward into November. The people will decide, which I love the process of that, but it's going to take a lot of work. And I would tell you to do your homework, and I would tell you to go out and talk to people in other states, especially if you have any relatives in Ohio or Florida or Wisconsin. I would would certainly appreciate you taking the time to talk to them and letting them know what an important election this is. Where are we in South Carolina? We are doing great in spite of Washington, D.C., and that is you are now on this election ballot going to be able to decide whether you want governor and lieutenant governor to be matched on the same ticket, whether they run together or whether they run separate. That is for you to decide. The people have decided. For a long time we said it was crazy to have a governor with one agenda and a lieutenant governor with another agenda. Now you have the ability to go and have them on the same ticket. The legislature wanted it to be done after me, so it won't go into effect until my predecessor, but it is still a great thing for the people of South Carolina to be able to vote on. Every state in the country had to deal with pension reform. The credit rating agencies were watching all of the states for this. This was a must-do for South Carolina, because when you lose your credit rating, we all pay for it. We pay for it in the debts and the loans and everything else that we have. What we did this year, and what I want to thank both of these gentlemen, because they were very involved, Representative Willis and Representative Smith, was that we reduced the amount of pension debt by $2 billion. Taxpayers will save $300 million a year now because of the way we did pension. You can no longer retire in 28 years. You now have to retire in 30. It is now no longer that you can go and, if you work a certain number of years, if you start at 18, you can't just collect the second you retire. You have to wait, just like in the military, until you're 62 or 65 to collect. No more double dipping. How many times did we see the Terry program and all of that? All of that is gone. Those were things that needed to happen, and with that, Moody's came out and said they gave us a credit plus. So we are back on top. We were always good, but now to have that plus credit rating is huge for us. The next thing that we will always focus on is jobs. That is my passion. That is my love. We have a great state, and all I'm doing is selling it. And what you can tell anybody you talk to, and every place I ever go, I say in South Carolina, we build things. We build cars. We build planes. We now have 3 of the 4 largest tire producers in the world right here in South Carolina, and we are now the largest tire producing state in the country. That's an amazing thing for us. If you saw the Olympics, there was a big wrap around the stadium, and it had athletes all over it, made by people in Lancaster, South Carolina. If you have 4-wheelers, I will tell you, I hope you're buying Honda, because we sell more 4-wheelers from our Honda plant in South Carolina than any place in the world. We produce them here. Those are great things for South Carolina. We make things. But now we're getting into the pharmaceutical industry. We're getting into the R&D industry. We're getting into those industries that will allow us to diversify. What I didn't want us to do was get into a textile basket like we did before, where we put all those eggs in that one basket, and when it went away, all of us didn't know what to do. We now have plenty that's there, and since we've taken office, over 27,000 jobs have been announced in our state. Where is my frustration at a 9.6% unemployment rate? Why do we have this? The reason we're still stuck at a 9.6% unemployment rate is because we have retirees who can no longer live off their retirement. They've had to go back to work. We have graduates who are getting out of college and they don't have jobs. And so as long as we have this pool, not to mention we have close to 1 million new people in the state. We now have a 7th congressional district, which is a great thing, but we also have that many more people that need jobs. So that is also creating an issue, but we will be okay. It means I have to work harder. It means we need to bring more jobs, and I will continue to do that. But it also means we need to really step up our workforce training. What we are finding is there are people out there that want jobs. They don't have the training to do it. So we are creating workforce communities. In every community, people are going to be able to get certificates, platinum, silver, bronze, whatever. They're going to know, if I take these classes, I can get these kinds of jobs. And the companies are being matched up with the certifications. So that now we are actually saying we've got these jobs, and this is how you lift yourself up. This is what you do. This is how you can make yourself better. And you can keep improving your certification. Every community in the state is doing that. And every community will be judged based on how they're doing. And we're going to assist them along the way. We got that paid for free by ACT. I asked them to take South Carolina on as a pilot project, and they did. And so you will see us come out with that soon, and that's going to be a great thing for workforce training. This next year, you will continue to see us talk about fiscal issues. We saw that we had almost $1 billion new last year. And what I told everybody was what I learned when I did the books at my parents' business when I was 13. When times are tough, you get tight, you get lean, and you make good decisions because you have to. And when times are good, you never celebrate because you never know when it's going to get tough again. And what we saw happen in the budget was I gave them an executive budget that went back and covered a lot of things that had been starving, that are core functions of government. You will always hear me say government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never intended to be all things to all people. We had law enforcement that was skeleton. I mean, they had no equipment, they had old cars, everything. They needed to be updated, but we had not enough officers. So we bulked them back up. SLED, all of you saw we had this backlog in DNA cases. We had to get that back up, so we bulked them back up. Mental health, it was immoral what had been done to mental health. And I will tell you, 1 in 4 people have a mental health issue. Go ahead, look around the room. But with treatment, they live a good, productive life. And those people deserve a chance. And what was happening was these people that had mental health issues were ending up in jail, and you were paying for it, or they were ending up in the emergency room, and you were paying for it. Now we've beefed it up to where people are getting help. We're doing video conferencing. They're not warehousing them in emergency rooms anymore. There's someone through video that is going and giving them treatment and giving them prescriptions. We're making sure we do all kinds of telemedicine and things like that, or even in the small hospitals, they are still getting the treatment that they need. So those are the things that we beefed up. What I didn't expect, and what was disappointing, was a legislature that wanted to spend money. I asked for us to cut taxes. And what you will hear a lot of people say is, well, we have low taxes. Why cut them some more? So our corporate income tax is 5%. It is one of the lowest in the country. But do you know what my competitive governors are doing? They are lowering and eliminating theirs. And if for every legislator that tells me it doesn't matter, every CEO, the first thing he asks me about is property taxes, corporate taxes, income taxes. He wants to know where they are and where they're going. We have got to continue to do that. It matters. When you go and you look at a Continental Tire that goes to Sumter and invests over $1 billion and hires 1,700 people, it's worth us looking into cutting taxes to be able to bring those companies in. We don't bring companies in by throwing money at them. We never have. We bring companies in because we've got a good business climate. I tell them the cost of doing business will be low. Regulations will be minimal, and we've cut all those out. We will give them a good, loyal, trained workforce, and we will continue to be one of the lowest unionized states in the country. That's what's bringing companies. So when we had the opportunity, I actually paid for the tax reduction in my executive budget. We put money where it needed to be, and we paid for the tax reduction. They didn't follow it. We did reduce small business taxes from 5 to 3, and I'm grateful that we were able to get that. But what we also saw was spending on an IRMO Veterans Park, spending on a pilot project for Habitat for Humanity, spending on a festival in Charleston, spending on things that we don't need to jump back into that Fort Farrell spending. Now, what I will tell you is most of the legislature realized that that was wrong, and we were able to get rid of a lot of that pork. But there was a lot that we didn't get rid of. And think about what we could have done to our roads. Think about how we could have reduced our debt. Think about how that should have gone back in your pocket. Any extra money we have, I will say it every year, should either go down to pay debt, go back to you, or put in a trust fund. We do not need to be spending this extra money we have. We are not out of the woods yet. And so we will continue to talk about tax relief every year. We'll continue to talk about living within our means. But as we go forward, this next year will be the year of workforce training, where we start looking at the 9th through 12th graders, getting GEDs, getting them trained, and making sure that we're putting them on the right path. They don't want to go through graduation because we have to face the fact only 1 and 2 are graduating in 4 years, but getting them into good jobs, making sure that we're retraining people, making sure that that happens. We're going to continue to recruit. We're going to continue to look at making sure we have a strong business climate. We're going to start looking at education real hard and figure out what we need to do at the earlier levels to spend less but actually get more for our money. Those are all things that we're going to continue to work on and make sure that we make a difference. But South Carolina is doing better. We are now known as the IT state. Everybody wants to know what we're doing, and I'm not telling. With that, I know there's a lot of other issues, so I don't want to take up too much time. Thank you for listening to me, but I know, Jim, you've got questions, and y'all have questions, and there's nothing I won't answer.
Well, Governor, if your comments are any indicator, you're in touch with what's going on, because there are a lot of questions that point to things that you mentioned, and now you've made this difficult because I have to pick which of the 4 questions to start with. But let me get underway here. You mentioned the referendum that will be on the ballot here in November, which is a great thing. But we have a little problem with the ballots this time around, and a lot of candidates got thrown off the ballot. I'm curious, what do you think specifically needs to be done in order to correct that problem, to make the process transparent, accountable, reliable, so that people don't require an attorney to have to go in and get become a candidate on a ballot, and we don't have this nonsense with the courts getting involved in party primaries?
Well, first I will tell you, I do think this is the year of the petition candidate. When years past, we never thought petition candidates mattered. They matter this year, and they should. It is absolutely embarrassing to all of us that 200 people were kicked off the ballot. We never exclude people from wanting to run. Anybody that ever wants to serve should be helped to serve and should be welcome to serve. And what we saw happen, I introduced an ethics reform package. I didn't talk about this. I introduced an ethics reform package in the end of August. And it was something I had started as a legislator. But now I have the ability to do as governor. And to lead the way, wanted to say, first of all, let's start doing income disclosures for legislators. Let's just start showing everybody that pays them, who pays them. It actually is not just for you, it's for the legislators too, to protect themselves so that no one has to go through what I went through when they start to question you, because you try and do the right thing and it protects you from doing that. Secondly, candidates should not have to go through different hurdles than incumbents. They should all be treated the same. They should have to file the same, do the same things. Those 200 candidates, it wasn't because they didn't know what they were doing. They did exactly what they were told to do. And all of a sudden we saw the judge rule. The legislature could have fixed it. The House wanted to fix it. It came down to the Senate. It came down to one senator. 200 people were kicked off the ballot because of one senator from Lexington County named Jake Knott who did not want the candidate. He was allowed to stop it. Every senator is responsible because they should have sat him down and fixed it. And that is the one thing I will tell you. But because of that, we need to sit him down and fix him. And that is the
Since you
Can
want
you
to
tell
get
I'm really
on the
upset
political
about
side,
that?
We fixed some of this problem not too long
I'll
ago.
ask a political-oriented question from Bill Nixon here in the audience. When the Romney administration takes the White House and you're offered a cabinet position, will you consider taking it?
Which one is Bill? Bill, you have to be the 2000th person that's asking that, but I will answer it again just for you. You know, when I endorsed Romney, we all had our sides. We all had our picks on who we wanted. And we all had our differences. But what I did was I sat down with every candidate. And I talked to them, and I felt an obligation as governor of South Carolina of where we were going to go, because I saw the problems and the issues that we had. And the first thing I asked Governor Romney was about illegal immigration. And I said, we have been stopped from being able to push through with our laws. What will you do? And he said, I was a governor. And he said, you have to do the will of your people. He said, I will never stand in the way of a state law when you are trying to do it. That was the first thing. The second thing was, I said, I do not want, and our state cannot afford Obamacare. He said, day one, I will have the legislators ready, and I will go and we will repeal Obamacare on the very first day. The third thing I told him was, I said, we need to be energy independent. I said, South Carolina is ready to go. I will help. I will lead the fight on that, but we cannot rely on foreign oil anymore. We've got to become independent. And he said, I will make sure we are energy independent in 8 years. He said, if you will give me that chance. And so we talked about a lot of different things like that. But what it came down to was in our world, you have a lot of people who talk. Elected officials love to talk. But you should never judge them on what they say. You should judge them on what they do. And when it came to the record, I looked at the fact that here was a man who had taken broken businesses and made them successful. He knew the value of it all. Then this was a man that took a failing Olympics and made it a source of pride for our country because he knew what that meant to the rest of the world. That was another result. And then I saw a governor who walked into a state with an 85% Democrat legislature. Sounds like Washington. He cut taxes, he improved education, and he brought in jobs, all while balancing his budget. That was it. He was the only one that had done it, that had actually proven what it took. So that is why I endorsed him. When I endorsed him, I said, I don't want anything from you. There's nothing that I want from you. All I want is to know that you will have the back of South Carolina when we need it. And so, no, I said from the beginning he knew vice presidential was not something I wanted, nor did I think I was qualified to do. Two, from her cabinet position, y'all are stuck with me. We've got a lot of good governors across this country. What we need them to do is to be good governors. Because really, when Washington is in chaos, it is up to the governors to lead and fight and balance budgets and do the good things. And if you look, so many of the governors are doing great jobs. So we don't need to be taking cabinet posts. We need to keep doing what we're doing so that we can show Washington, if the states can do it, then you can do it.
Okay, now we've covered the light material. According to a poll commissioned by the National Association of Manufacturers and the National Federation of Independent Businesses, 55% of small business owners would not start a company today because there's far too much uncertainty, too much burdensome regulations, and too few policymakers willing to put aside their egos and fulfill their responsibilities to the American people. While most of the blame tends to get laid at the federal government, what specific current state-level tax and regulatory policies do you have a problem with? Do you think contributes to this problem? And what specific changes do you believe we need to make?
Well, let's first talk about what we know. 95% of our economy in South Carolina is small business. Not the Boeings, not the BMWs, not the Michelins. 95 of the moms and pops, the ones like I grew up in. And we always have to remember that when we go to the store. And we always have to remember that in tax policy, that we have to be fair to everybody. You'll remember the Amazon fight. The Amazon credits were given by my predecessor. And I was forced to have to take what he was given. And I spoke against it. And I said, don't do this. Because what you were doing is when you say that they don't have to pay sales tax, what about that mom and pop bookstore down the street? What about the garden shop down the street? What about everybody else that's having to pay it? You were just creating an unlevel playing field. If you can't do it for the whole industry, don't do it. We were overridden on that. So Amazon has their ability, and they have said, oh, but everybody, we will send everybody a bill and they can pay taxes on their own. I mean, we'll see if that happens, but that's just not going to happen. So that's the first thing. When I came into office, what I knew was I didn't have the support of the establishment, and I didn't have the support of the big money people. And that was such a blessing because I didn't owe anybody anything. So we put the smartest, brightest, best business people into these agencies to run them. Perfect example, Health and Human Services. We got one of the best minds in the country from Louisiana that's running it right now. DSS, Lillian Collar, our director at Social Services, has just, I met with her yesterday, 12,000 welfare recipients have now been put to work because of her. We got her from Hawaii. We have moved around, but what I did was I put agency directors and I said, time is money. And if you are costing our constituents time, you're costing them money. So we immediately went after all the regulations. Labor license and regulation, where most of the small businesses have to deal with, we cleaned house. We practically cleaned out that entire agency because it was corruption and there was a lot of paper sitting on desks. We don't have that issue anymore. Our DHEC board, the permitting board, I wiped off the entire board, replaced them with business people, and the chairman of the DHEC board is the president of a construction company. So he knows that time is money. So those were things we did right away that people could tell. The fact that we reduced small business taxes from 5 to 3 is a good thing. We need to reduce individual income taxes. We need to reduce corporate income taxes. That is what businesses look for. Property taxes, we need to make sure that we address property taxes because for small businesses right now, it is a very unfair situation. So there are things that we have done and there are things that we can do. But as we go forward, if you watch out for business, you watch out for education, you watch out for healthcare, you watch out for everything. And we always have to remember, if it's good for business, it's good for people.
Okay. You segued into the education front. South Carolina continues to spend more and more money on education. However, the results don't seem to be commensurate with that. What kind of policies do you think that we should be instituting here in South Carolina to improve the results in education? And then if you'd like to also comment on the money that we spend on education, that would be good as well.
A couple of things. We spend, last check, almost $11,000 a year to educate a child in the state. And we are only graduating 1 out of every 2 kids in 4 years. Think about that. That's unacceptable. Something is wrong. You have 1,000 people that work at the Department of Education. 1,000 people in one building. Half of them work on school bus maintenance. I've been fighting for 2 years. I will continue to fight. We are the only state in the country that don't privatize our school buses. We insist on putting our kids on old buses with no air conditioning, and we keep trying to fix them, and they're 15 and 16 years old. Whereas if we did what every other state did, contracted it out, they'd be in 3 to 4-year-old buses. They'd use the same bus drivers because they already know the routes. They'd have air conditioning, they'd be safer, and you wouldn't have to deal with the maintenance of those buses. So the first thing is, let's get to the focus of learning. Take those kinds of things out. The second thing is, where is the money going? What's a pretty big building at the Department of Education? And I can't do anything about it because I don't appoint the superintendent of education. It is still an elected position. Every year that bill goes before the legislature to have the governor appoint the superintendent of education. And every year it is passed in the House and it dies in the Senate. So I will tell you that I would love to get my hands on it. But because I can't, what I am going to do is you're still going to see me come out with an education agenda where we focus more on charter schools. We focus more on what we can do to give choices for the parents and the children. It's a different level of school choice. It's more of making sure that we're doing custom education and allowing parents to decide more of what they want. It's kind of, if you build it, they will come. It's that approach to education. We have to start understanding that our children are different. And if you look at preschool, my children were totally different in preschool. One was very quiet and stayed in the corner, and the other one just didn't stop running her mouth. And so, but we decided which preschool was best for her. When it comes to college and we think about our kids, we with our kids decide, do we want them in a small college? Do we want them at a technical school? Do we want to put them in a big university? Because we know best. If we're doing it in preschool, and we're doing it in college, and after K through 12, why aren't we doing it during K through 12 when the years matter the most? We've got to give parents and kids the right to decide what education is best for them.
Okay, let's hear from some of you with questions for the governor. James, you had a question.
We could already answer mostly. I was going to ask about the petition ballots, but you asked. But since we can touch on the same topic on petition ballots, what are you educating voters about not voting straight party ticket?
We will. We're going to. I think one, it needs to be done county by county. We need to let everybody know that this is not the year that you pull the lever, R or D. You really need to look at these names. You really need to decide who these people are. In many instances, these are really good people that are running, that deserve the right to be looked at. But it is going to take a lot for somebody to know, wait, don't do that. Petition candidate isn't a bad word. That means that was somebody that wanted to run that didn't get to be on the ballot. So yes, you will see us try and go around and educate a lot of people about petition. But I would ask you that if you've got petition candidates in your area, just give them the forums to speak. Give them the consideration to tell people that there are petition candidates out there, because we do need to make sure that my biggest fear is that we've lost this election in terms of having good people run. But my biggest fear is that the next election, we will have people showing up with attorneys because they're scared that they can't fill out the paperwork the right way, or we just won't have people try at all. So we've got to make sure this is the year the petition candidate, not necessarily that all petition candidates deserve to win, but all petition candidates deserve the time and the efforts to go and look and see what their platform is. Because in a lot of these districts, got some good candidates there. How are you?
Hi, Governor. Dr. Ira Williams.
Yes.
I made an offer to you a year ago that I could help you change, completely reorganize our broken healthcare delivery system. We had a 10-minute open door, and then we allowed him to meet with Director Cat. And then early this year, you indicated there was an obstacle that prevented you from accepting my offer. I now know how to overcome that obstacle, and I know how to help you make healthcare history by completely reorganizing this state's healthcare delivery system. Would you meet with me and let me explain in detail what can be done for the
I will have you meet with Director Keck because it would make more sense for him to hear what you have to say.
No, they won't, for this reason. Director Keck is fully qualified for how to pay for health care. Anyone who is injured or sick enters the delivery system. That's the system that the states are responsible for two reasons. All medical care is local and states licensed doctors. So even if we had a perfect solution for how to pay for health care, Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare, Obamacare, we would still have a broken health care delivery system. That is the system I can show you how to completely reorganize. You have a unorganized and dysfunctional healthcare delivery system, and I know precisely how to change that, and South Carolina can lead the nation in that regard if you allow me to help you.
Let's see what we can do. I've got Courtney, if you will make sure that you give him your card. You can call her directly. She's directly with me. And we'll see what we can do to set something up. Thank you very much.
I can ask a follow-up on that, just from a broader standpoint. You know, a lot of citizens have ideas about how government can be better. Not just complaints, but actually ideas. What's the best way for citizens to engage and get somebody's ear, get the appropriate person's ear, to try and get these ideas before folks? Because certainly not all the people in the legislature are experts on everything, and not every person in the executive branch is an executive.
No, there's no rocket scientists in government, I will tell you that. You know, the best, I can only do from my part, but what I can tell you that we do is every year we do a series of town halls. Mauldin came up because Karen asked for Mauldin to come up, but you will see in the next couple of weeks we will do probably about 6 town halls around the state where we go and we tell everybody what's going on. We tell them how their legislators did. We do report cards so that you can see exactly how they voted, where they voted, so that you can have that conversation yourself and say, well, why didn't you support Governor and Lieutenant Governor being on the same ticket, or why didn't you support Department of Administration restructuring? Those kinds of things do matter. And so we do the report cards as well. And then I go around and I do the open door after 4, but I go to different areas. Monday I'll be in Sumter. I've done them in Greenville before. You know, I've done it in Florence before. So I'll go to different areas so that I'm coming to you instead of you coming to me. But other than that, you know, to email and call, I actually, every letter that comes through, I sign it. I sign the letters, I read the letters, I know what they are. It makes for late nights, but I'd much rather hear from you. No offense to my press in the room, but I'd much rather hear from you than what is being said in the press, because it's different. When I go to town halls, what you say and what they say are different. And so I try and consolidate that by taking both and figuring out where we need to be. So, you know, the thing is, I work for you, and the legislature works for you. If you're not getting a response back, that's not your fault. That's the other person's fault. And so you have to make a difference and change that.
Governor Haley, I love your comments about education and the need to give people choice. I think here in Greenville, we actually have a model that would work across the state. And I'd like to encourage you to see if we can implement it across the state. And here's the situation. About 10 years ago, Dr. Tom Barton started a charter school on his campus. It's a public school, but it's a charter school. Those kids graduate, about 99% of the people that go. They all go to college. As a matter of fact, they start their college while they're in high school, and many of them graduate with associate degrees. That's the reverse of what's happening in the general public school. They do it with about $5,500 a year because they're not getting the money for transportation and school lunches and that kind of thing. They get the parents involved. They do the things. It's not a selective group. I mean, it's a pull your name out of the hat if you're interested in going. It's a great model. It's a combination between a public school system or the state charter school and the local technical college. We've got the technical colleges across the state. They're willing to partner. They're willing to provide it. And to do the public higher education in South Carolina, for every student in, about 50% are in technical colleges and 50% in universities, but we spend 75 cents of a public education dollar on the universities. They're great and that's good, but the tech schools, we get a 2-year education for a quarter. For 2 years at the senior colleges and universities, it's 75 cents. The bargain is in technical education, and we need to support that.
So a couple of things. The education reform that you're going to see me come out with is exactly what you're talking about. It is charter schools all over the state. That is the model that we're going to. There's another great one in Charleston. There's a great story in Spartanburg. But these are schools that are going into poverty areas. They are paying for uniforms, they're paying for breakfast, lunch, dinner, they're giving them all the education they need, and they're doing it for half of what we're spending in our regular public schools now. And those kids are scoring higher than those in your private schools. So it works. And so we're going to introduce that this year, and it's going to cause a lot of people to not be sure about whether they want to do it. What we are doing right now is not working. So we have to do something else. When it comes to higher ed, I started the very first month that I was in office. I met with every president of the universities, and I met with every president of the technical colleges. And what you are going to see us come out with this year as well is a higher education funding formula. We've been working on it a couple of years. You will see everybody in support of it. For the longest time, universities were supported based on football tickets and how many of the legislators graduated from there. Now we're changing that. Now we're going to a formula. Now it will be based on dollars in the classroom. It will be based on what they're doing to help those kids place into jobs. It will be based on what they do with economic development. It will be based on actual curriculum and how many in-state students they take. That's how they will be funded. So it won't matter whether they're a big school or a small school. It will matter on the results that they give. And so they have the ability to be motivated to do better. The bigger schools may see it come down, and the smaller schools may go to the top, but they will all get it based on merit. And this is something that I think we've got all university presidents in agreement on, knock on wood, as of what they say today, and it's something that will help the technical schools, because right now, when you see all these manufacturing jobs coming in, while the engineers are coming from our Clemsons and our Carolinas and all these colleges, it's not those degrees that we need. It's the technical college. It's the 6-month certification, the 12-month certification, and the 2-year certification. And they're coming out making 6 figures when they do that. So things have changed in terms of education, and we're going to try and change that cost.
Thank
you. Governor Haley, my wife and I have been foster parents for over 2 years here in Greenville County, and through our experiences and experiences of some of our friends here and others who are involved, be they foster to adopt parents or guardian ad litems, even some DSS workers, we've actually been very disappointed by what largely seems to be a lack of concern for the children being served, and even some mistreatment of the parties that are serving DSS. So with that said, we brought these concerns up at the local level, and we know it undoubtedly has a lot to do with like large caseloads and tight funding and other reasons. But, however, we've noted in recent years that steps are being taken to remedy these issues, such as one, I think most or all of the guardian ad litem positions have been made into volunteer jobs, and there's been a creation of a private entity here in the upstate that DSS subcontracts that help with certain foster services. And so we see these both as being steps in the right direction, and as my first question, we'd like to know what other ideas or changes are taking place at the state level to help improve the foster system? And the second question is then, who can we get in contact with to hear our concerns in more detail? And we would like to be a part of improving the policies and especially the accountability for child services.
Well, first of all, God bless you. And I tell you that one is a near and dear issue to my heart because my husband Michael was adopted at the age of 5. And so we know exactly what that means. What I have talked to Lily Claire about, she has a deep passion for this. What she saw when she came to South Carolina was a mess. Children were being moved from home to home to home. They had no stability. The health care was not taken care of. There was the health care, they were just being treated all over the place. They didn't have primary doctors. She is now, and I just talked with her about numbers, we've reduced the numbers in half of moving kids around. But what I would love for you to do, if you have a group, I would love for you to go meet with her directly. Because if you have already talked to your local group, I need her to hear what you have experienced on the local level. Because she goes to these offices, but there's nothing like hearing it from your voice. So if you don't mind, before you leave, if you will just get with Courtney, let's set up a meeting with you so that she can hear exactly what your stories are. I think it will be tremendously helpful to her and tremendously helpful to me.
Governor, from Richard Hayes, I'm not quite sure where he is from. You probably heard the reports that South Carolina kind of is on one of those lists where you prefer to be at the bottom of, but we're at the top of. We're the 5th worst in terms of corruption and ethics. And question, why is the Attorney General not engaged in investigating the allegations against Speaker Harrell and his campaign expenses?
Do you want his phone number? I don't want to be funny about this because this is important. This is serious. I came out with an ethics reform package because I knew we needed an ethics reform package. It was because I saw loopholes in the system, and I saw things in the system that not only didn't protect the public, but they didn't protect the legislator. Like, you could try and want to do the right thing, and you can still get caught. And so that is really the reason that I came out with ethics reform. What you need to know is, as far as I know, the House is coming out with an ethics reform package, the Senate's coming out with an ethics reform package. I worked with the Attorney General on ethics reform, so everybody realized this was going to be the year of ethics reform. That before all of this happened. I have not weighed into Speaker Harrell's issues because, one, I don't know the details of the issues. And while the political thing is to jump all on it and allow the press to see a food fight, I'm not going to be a part of that. That is the reason I am not getting involved. If that has gone to Attorney General Wilson, that is his issue to deal with. What I have said in my ethics reform package, what I will continue to say, is House members should not be watching House members' ethics, and senators should not be watching Senate ethics. You don't have the fox guarding the hen house ever. In that ethics reform package, we all should be under one ethics committee that is not bound because it keeps us from having any sort of political vendettas. It keeps from somebody abusing the system, and it also makes it fair. And it keeps the process good and clean. So what I hope for Speaker Harrell is that he gets a fair hearing on whatever this is, but he is held accountable. He has to prove everything that should be proven. And in the end, the process is followed. And what I want at the end of this year is true ethics reform. And if we get that, we will have served the people of the state.
This is a follow-up to that. As the system is today, you really have nothing you can do other than encouraging others to do the right thing. You really don't have a say in what happens.
Okay, I'm going to give you a long answer to a short question. We have a weak governor system in South Carolina, and y'all heard Governor Sanford talk about it for a long time. Having said that, I've made the most of what I can do. And so you've seen me really jump into my agencies. You've seen me really lead by example with executive budgets. You just see me loud. I wear high heels not because it's a fashion statement, but because I kick a lot, and it works. And so those are the reasons that I do that. But I want to give you an example of what we have in the state. We have what you've always heard me call as the big green ugly monster, the Budget Control Board. No other state in the country has it. This state, whenever anything happens, you have to go through these 1,000 people at the Budget Control Board. When the kitchen didn't work at the governor's residence, we had to call the Budget Control Board. We couldn't call the plumber. That's how bad it is in our state. Having said that, I tried to change it. I wanted a Department of Administration. Because just imagine a company where a CEO has no control over their human resources, where a CEO has no control over their IT services, where a CEO has no control over the buildings that they own, the cars that they own, or how that is managed. That's me. That's me in your state. So we went through and we said, this needs to change. Agencies like DSS don't need to be worried about HR and IT and all that. They need to be worried about children. Give me all of those back office procedures so I can consolidate. None of our email systems talk to each other. None of our IT systems talk to each other in the agencies. Just imagine the cost of each one. But if we consolidated all of that, and you broke up that building with those 1,000 people, just imagine what it would be. The chef in the kitchen at the residence said that he needed a tube of Neosporin. He had to call the Budget Control Board. And she said, buy a first aid kit. And he said, it costs $70 every time I buy one. I have 3. She said, I'm sorry, you got to buy a first aid kit. I said, I will buy you the Neosporin. That's how bureaucratic it is. So when we went through to do the Department of Administration, the first year before last, they went through, passed the House, went to the Senate. Senate said they'd get to it, they'd get to it, they'd get to it, came to the last day, and for some reason they ran out of time. And so if you remember, I said, no, you are not going home until you finish this. You're going to do your job. We have to do this, you're going to have to do this. And they sued me, and I lost. And so they got to go home. So last year they came in, and I said, you promised to fix this first part of January. The House had done their job. It went through the Senate passed it. They went to conference committee. We waited, and we waited, and we waited. February, March, April, May. And I kept saying, don't wait till the last minute. And they waited till the last minute. When the day came up, it was a matter of, there was a senator speaking, and you had to, in order to get a vote on the record, which now thankfully we have our votes on the record, you have to sit a senator down, or he can talk as long as he wants. So this senator was speaking, and all we needed were the votes to sit the senator down so that they could have a vote on the record. I was short by 2 votes. I was texting, I was calling senators, I was trying to do it. We flipped one of the votes. We were down to 1 vote. And I looked at it, and Senator Thomas, who had been defeated, was not there. And I called him and I said, I know you're not in the Senate anymore, but I need you to do this. He got in the car. He drove to Columbia. And right as he came in, we had the votes. And I knew if they had to vote on the record, we were going to pass the largest restructuring effort in 25 years. He walked onto the Senate floor, and the Senate Finance Chairman, Senator Leatherman, sent one of the senators to the bathroom. We had called, we knew the senator was squishy. Ray Cleary from Myrtle Beach, in case you want to know. We knew he was squishy, but we had all his constituents calling him to make sure that he stayed. He went to the bathroom. We couldn't stay in the bathroom forever. So we caught him running out into the garage, and he left. We lost a 2-year battle by 1 vote. And what I watched going to 5 o'clock was Senator Jake Knotts just talking. That's the kind of state we're in. That's why these elections matter. That's why these elected officials matter. Because I called Senator Nikki Sept, who right now, if you know, is running against D.D. Balders. He's a Democrat, and he has signs up everywhere saying he's a caring conservative. And I called him and I said, Nikki, I need you to do this. This is important. I just want to vote on the record. He said, I can't. He said, I got to vote with my group. And I said, if you do this, I will tell everybody the story. He said, I don't care. So if any of you know anyone in the Lexington County area, Dee Dee Waters is the person we need. Nikki Setzler is not the person that we need. I tell you that because there's not a lot that the governor controls. But we've also got an issue with the legislature, that there's so much in Columbia that happens that you don't know. I'm going to tell you every bit of it, because that's all I can do. But look at what we're dealing with. It's childish. Our kids wouldn't do that. And so when you're dealing with things like that, you're dealing with a money situation, a power situation, an ego situation, and a situation that we can change, because you're the one that's going to the ballot box. So just remember that as we go forward. Long answer.
Now we'll answer one that's unfortunately needed.
Jim, excuse me. May I say something, Governor? If you Google South Carolina State Constitution, you will find out that we have an 1895 Constitution that has been tweaked a couple of times by the Senate, and I think that is an absolute disgrace. You're living under an 1895 State Constitution, and she deserves more than she's gotten.
Down hall just on that topic. Last question to tee up for you here. Because of the system of government that we have, and the fact that the governor's position is somewhat weak, your executive budget for the coming year is going to be coming out soon.
Yes.
Will you insist that the legislature adhere to the Constitution and actually hold some joint hearings before they take your budget, do whatever it is they may do with it?
We can ask them every year to, you know, I do want to give the House credit. Because I will always tell you, when they do the right thing, support them and back them. When they do the wrong thing, call their hand out. But you have to thank the good ones. Brian White's the new chairman of Ways and Means, and I will tell you, he did an amazing job last year working with us on an executive budget and really trying to make sure that we were in line and we stayed within our means. It didn't get corrupted until it got to the Senate. And so in terms of hearings, I think that's something that you, the people, should demand. I would back you all day long, because I think you need, my concern is the time you really need to see it is after it comes back from the Senate. The House is not your issue. It's the Senate that's your issue, because when it comes back and they go into conference committee, that's when I would want you to see the museums and the festivals and the money that's spent in the way that it's not spent. Because what starts out as an apple ends up completely as an orange. So I can put an executive budget out there, and I just watch it torn apart. And it doesn't get torn apart until it really gets to the Senate.
Governor, we can't thank you enough for being here this evening and taking questions and whatnot. Our time is drawn to a close, as I'm told. So, Mayor Raines.
Thank you very much.
Closing comments is, again, I want to thank the sponsors, and the governor, I really want to thank our business that just opened this year, and conveniently right across the street. That's Dunkin' Donuts. Then I would be remiss not to mention this. As the governor mentioned, she is a part of the military family. Her husband, Michael, will be deployed in the next few months. And I told her in the back that we were coming out that the message back to Michael is that the officials and the citizens of